when there is kind of a transfer of the email from the border MTA of your organization to the border MTA of my organization, there is a SMTP protocol in action, and that's where thing is that both these servers actually share multiple data between them. Okay, and now we'll look at what all data is actually shared. So the data that is shared between them mostly look like this. If you see over here, okay. So there are a lot of like things like exchange of information, like okay, like similar to what we have seen in the SSL handshake, three-way handshake, like server client hello and server hello. In similar fashion, there are like kind of a few terminology that is kind of in the SMT protocol, like what all things are being exchanged between, or what kind of handshake happens between this border MTAs. Okay, so this is how the thing look like, and we'll kind of understand what all this terminology is. So like if you see the the border MTA of your organization, the example that I am setting over here, that over here, let's say is actually mentioned by the C, the client, and as is the, let's say, the source, for an example. Okay, so client is doing some kind of of an handshake. It is telling that okay, I am from this domain, let's say yourdomain.com, and then there is some kind of a handshake. Then the client is telling me okay, there is an email from let's say from address, like whoever has sent that email to me. So the from and the MTA over here is telling that that server has an email from a specific guy. Okay, so those kind of information will be kind of added over here. Then who is the recipient of that domain? So it will have the another. So here the thing is that another domain will be replaced with securecybers.com. Okay, over here, and then there will be like kind of exchange of data, like what kind of data is on that email. So let's say what the subject of that email, the from address to address, and what's the body of that email. And then once the transfer has been done to the border MDA, then the client will execute a quit command, and then that session will be kind of terminated. Okay, so there are a lot of things that happens between the SMT protocol exchange. The thing is that the border MTA actually do a kind of an handshake using the SMTP protocol, and basically the thing is that the the client actually does send out a hello request, then it kind of send out a what all details are there in the email server, and then it quit the session. Okay, so now we'll look at this terminology, what all these things are in a little bit much more detail. Okay, so let me just quickly start with an example. Okay, how this SMTP protocol actually uh, goes out with an easy to understand example. Okay, so the first thing that happens is let's say you have an email address, for an example, john at example.com. Okay, is the source, and let's say uh, John wants to kind of send out an email to Sarah, and the domain of Sarah is, let's say, another domain.com, for an example. So this is a destination. Okay, so now we will see what all things will happen when this border MTA will kind of communicate with each other over SMT protocol. So once this is the source and this is the destination, so the first thing that will happen is that the client actually connects to the server. So here this is the client and this is the server. So thing is that the first thing that this server will send out to this server will be this one, EHLO, and then it will write example.com. Okay, so this is actually kind of a greeting where the email client actually sends a greeting message to the email server, and this is what it will look like, the one that we also saw over here. But the only thing is that it is in the it is a little bit in the different format. Okay, so the first thing will be EHLO, and then the thing is that it will say mail, and then from, and then the email address. Let's say john at example.com. So these are all the things that we have actually also seen over here, like what all traffic goes back and forth. And then thing is that what we will try to do is we'll look at from this figure how the thing happened in much more detail. Okay, how the exchange of data happens. So let's say this is the mail server, the SMTP client, and this is the SMTP server, the one that I am describing over here. This MTA. Okay, these two MTA in action. So what happens first is that this mail server tells to that client is, hi there, I want to send an email, and then it sends out a hello packet. Okay, and the receiving mail server get that hello packet. It's kind of like a what we have seen in SSL handshake, like where client hello and server hello is set up in the HTTPS traffic. In similar manner, these all things happen. Okay, like it says hello, and then it replies back with some kind of an acknowledgement. Then it send out the uh, details about from whom the email is kind of getting sent out. It's sent on acknowledgement. Similarly, who is the recipient, and then it send out, okay, what's the data of that email. It's again sent out an acknowledgement, and that's where the content is sent out, and then where the MTA says that, okay, the email has been kind of transferred to you successfully. So now let's quit this kind of connection. Okay, so this is overall like what all things happen, what all thing actually happens in the SMTP protocol. But before that, there are a few other things. So let me, what I will do is, let me just drag this down over here. So what I also want to kind of say that at a high level, that when this kind of handshake happens, the hello part over here, there are also other commands that are executed in between before this data is sent out. So you might have a little bit confusion that, okay, this data, the data of my email is kind of sent out in an decrypted format, but that's not the case. Okay, what happened before this data is being exchanged between the mail client and the mail server, which is this one and this one, there is another command that is executed, okay, which is this one, which is called as start TLS. Okay, so when this start TLS is executed, and this actually comes somehow, like I will say, just for an easy of understanding, let's say this somehow comes over here. Okay, and what happened is that when this command is executed, actually there is a SSL session, the one that we have already seen earlier, and SSL, an encrypted channel is kind of established between this MTA and this MTA over here, and an encrypted channel is kind of set up. Okay, and once this encrypted channel is kind of set up, using the similar fashion that I have showcased earlier, where I told about the client hello, server hello, and the client hello, server hello, and the other details like the certificate exchange and all. Okay, once this is done, then only over that encrypted channel, this all data is kind of shared out between the MTA client and the MTA server. Okay, like what's the from address, the recipient address, and the data of that email. Okay, so this is where the data kind of is shared out. Okay, and the other thing is also that in this after this start TTLS, the other thing is that uh, I'm just planning not to kind of overcomplicate the thing. And that's where like kind of like what when the session is kind of set up, that's where the email analysis gets email forwarding is being done. And the other thing, guys, just want to kind of just kind of like thing is that just to kind of make you guys give some idea about that. So before even without deep diving in that, thing is that there are a lot of other kind of authentication that is kind of taking place. Just there's not just a TTLS session that is set up. There's also kind of session that is set up is that, okay, are you authorized to kind of send that email? Okay, so those all things also happen